Hey everybody, that ACO guy here. Today I'm working on maintenance, and someone had asked, like, we haven't seen you do maintenance in a while. I like those videos, and I thought, yeah, I could do that. So the 800 gallon, I have basically let it have all the time it's going to get. The fish have grown, they're looking pretty good. The plants, not so much. I think it's the auto doser. I'm just not keeping on top of it to keep enough fertilizer going in, even though I'm feeding these fish a lot. You can see there's a lot of fish in here, but we're getting algae on the glass. I think the light's a little too bright. We've tried different methods of lower light, higher light, lots of different algae eaters in here, like the rosy barbs. We've got pandagaras doing some work. We've got some reticulated hillstream loaches. We've tried adding gear. Can we solve this with money? And so you can see here we've got a little UV sterilizer. Next to that we've got a kind of a wave maker or a pump. We've got a power head there pumping to a fine polishing filter, and all this equipment doesn't look good, so I'm going to try to remove most of that equipment. And from the side, and this is the angle I get every day, is like, oh, it looks so cloudy. And now it admittedly looks worse on camera than it does in person. But, you know, cleaning the sides of the glass, you can kind of see here maybe the stuff growing on the inside of the glass. It's not terrible, but when you start to look through 8 feet of water, you see the clarity. And so the plants keep growing. It's not that they don't grow, they're just not growing tall. And so you can see they're wanting to spread, and all the pots we put in there are spreading. It's just I think it's a lack of nutrients, and it's really hard to put root tabs into this. Even though I've been feeding a ton, trying to get these fish to poop enough, I think I just got to go with a lot more liquid fertilizer. Basically have a dose every day with the auto doser. And why didn't you do that, Corey? Well, because I lost the cord in the move, basically. I've got a auto doser set here. I need a cord. Here's 2 liter of Easy Green. I've bought a different style of auto doser. We'll probably install that today. I'm working on building a whole new fine polishing pad filter for this. I've been using the 3D printer to accomplish that, and we'll be doing the giant canister filter today, which I absolutely hate doing these, just because, like, canister filters, they hold so much gunk, but they take so long to clean. And then it's like, oh yeah, you've got the CO2 system, and you've got the CO2 reactor, and you've got the quick disconnects, and you got to get that out of there, which is a thing. But if I really want to make this tank, give this tank the best chances of going, all right, let's get this back to glory. I've got fish I like in here. They've grown out. I've let it have the time. Now it's the, force it thing. And so I'm going to force it by changing all the things and trying to make it look better over time. And so that's what I'm bringing you along on this journey for. There's other things I want to tackle today. There's a lot of cleanup that needs to go on. I've just got lots of projects that have been happening, and when the power goes out, and that's the extension cord we used, and it can kind of chime in. I don't know if you guys have seen this. It's been I think it's been in video by this point, but these guys are getting nice and bigger. They're not always running straight from the camera, and so that's starting to look kind of good. Plants are still looking good. Got a little bit of algae. You can probably see it on the front glass here a little bit. There's some in the gravel. But if you come to the side, and that's the best way to judge algae on your glass, actually, is just looking from this end. And you can see from the back end where the algae is. It's mostly down by the gravel. So that was just me getting sidetracked there. But this tank is actually so dense with dwarf Sagittaria that the fish aren't having a good time. And so when I feed, it's difficult because it's so dense. So I'm going to be doing a major trim and removal of the front here, because it's, plants are great until they get to a point. And, unfortunately, the benefit and the downfall of the dwarf Sag is they will just keep populating. You can just see they keep getting more and more dense. Bounce, 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 make more, make more, make more. So, still no action over here. I did remove one female of these guys to here, trying to let her babies out in this little contraption that Lowell has designed. I've been printing some larger ones. I haven't put them into effect yet, but we'll see. And then, yeah, there's lots of other stuff, but it won't all get done today. I mean, you can see this is the Monster Guppy Project tank where the fry are growing out, and they're now adults, and they'll be having babies, and I'm sure there's babies in there. And there's way too much, well, not way too much, but there's a lot of floating water Sprite in there. And you can see the water Sprite is out competing the algae. Remember, flashback, these looked horrible when covered with algae. Those still do, because they were kind of they were still getting a lot of light. But yeah, if we, plants do help reset a balance. Like, look at that Java fern looks amazing, even though it was basically getting no light. And so that's why I'm basically convinced we're using so much light on our aquariums that even when you could see how dark that is. And yet, I haven't moved this at all. This is how dark this has been. If we kind of, oh, that Java fern's like, thank you. That is the light I like. And so I think that there's definitely stuff to learn there. So this gold guppy tank, which I gotta work, or I hate spending all my time looking instead of working. But you can see here that the guppies with the magic small fish feed have just gone bazonkers. That's right, bazonkers. I've really been upping the feeding. Just to make sure that all the fry survive, which I was feeding it for quite a few months now, but I've taken to really upping the feed, and so the baby count is through the roof in here. And I think this tank looks pretty good, and you can see that crypt red tiger looking good back there. But yeah, I mean, all the tanks, honestly, they're doing well. They just overgrown, need maintenance, and I got to put some time in. So I'm hoping to put kind of nose to the grindstone, 3 or 4 hours in today, and just get general stuff done. There's so much testing's been done. Thanksgiving's over. Christmas is on the way. Got stuff I want to do. Would you guys make babies already? Come on. Yeah, these guys. All right, I'm going to start charging the battery and start working on that canister filter. So I just wanted to chime in. I watched all of Zenzo's fish room tour video, and now it's on... and then it kicked over to a Keeping Fish Simple tour of my fish room. But yeah, so I watched all of that, and what I wanted to point out was that video was 27 minutes long, and I just filled this back up with water. So that's the part I don't like about canister filters, is that they can take so long to clean. Like, yes, this one's massive. It holds a bunch, and it was pretty dirty, no doubt. But it's that 30 minutes of your shirt gets wet, you're dirty, like there's this much gunk in the bottom of the sink, water kind of gets splashed over. And that's from a guy that literally set up a stainless steel sink with a sprayer to minimize how long this takes. So just kind of, if you have a canister, the pain. But if you're thinking about getting a canister, know that, hey, yeah, every X amount, you got to do this. And honestly, for me, it's been about a year. They will hold a massive amount, and the amount of bio rings in here is mind-blowing. So it'll handle an 800-gallon aquarium no problem, but just know that when it is time to take out the trash, it's quite a bit. So I'm going to get this wrangled back in there, turned back on, so we can get some water flowing through the media again while we work on the next part of that. Alright, so got some water on the floor as I normally do, and now it's repriming itself, purging all the air and the CO2. So it's a real pain in the butt when you have a CO2 reactor, because it's building up CO2. Yeah, you can turn it off, but getting canister filters to run through extra stuff. And so, yeah, right now what you see is, oh, isn't that making the water worse? Like, yep, it's getting stuff out of the pipes and anything I missed while cleaning. And it will collect all that, but we took out crazy amounts. So the next thing I'll be doing is the intake sponge. And I'll be cleaning the kind of the front glass and everything, because you kind of want to, if I'm going to change any water, which I don't know that I am yet, but before I start fine filtering, I want to get it so I can see better. So that's probably a 10-minute to 20-minute project itself to do the glass correctly. Otherwise, you get these little streaks. Like I did it quickly last time. I don't know if you can see it. We'll have to. The fish are so distracting to the camera, but you get streaks in it, and then that comes back in like a few days and it looks worse. So if you don't take the time to do a good job, you get that streaking. I'll replace the pad on my giant magnet and we'll get a good job done of it. So I don't know if I've ever shown this on camera. The actual particles that come off a scrubber when you're cleaning the front of your glass. So I think I can do it pretty well with this magnet. So if you watch kind of top right here, I'm gonna try to keep it in focus, but if I move fast enough, you'll see it kind of spitting out, and that's what goes into your water. So that's why you do this before you do a water change. So we'll see if I can, you see those kind of tufts coming out? And I'll try to do it again. Yeah, you saw a big, kind of a big thing right there. We'll try to do it again here. You see the green kind of aura about it? And if I kind of lift up here, I'll try it one more time here, which then I'll try to show you the streaks too, if you can see the streaks to evaluate your aquarium. The lighting makes this really hard. So then if I look to the other side here, well, you guys, yeah, you can see like a streak like right there we missed all the way down, and you can see we haven't done the bottom yet. And so viewing on the side, you can see where you've cleaned and where you've missed. We haven't done anything up here yet. And so we did the end panel, and you can see like it's looking fairly clear, except for by that piece of equipment. And you can see the water is getting cloudier and cloudier. The canister filter's doing its job, as in it burped into there, and then we're getting the glass clean. So this is definitely one of those, it's gonna look way worse before it looks better scenarios. But, long term, it'll look better. So we're gonna keep working on this, and 5 more minutes should have it finished up, hopefully, on this part. All right, next up, we got to remove the pre-filter sponge. So this collects a lot of algae and just food and big pieces of poop, and you can see stuff's getting sucked into it right now, right? That's our first line of defense, and it's the most coarse filtration I have. But if I just grab that, it's going to release all of it back into the water, and as you know, we're trying to work on water quality. So you grab a fish bag or a Ziploc bag, and we're going to get that around there and pull it off without letting any of the water out. So you kind of basically get it around and then pull it off, lift it out, take it to a sink and clean it. So that's what I'm going to do here, and just wanted to kind of show off that tip because so many people will see just grab it. It's like you've just undone the work it did. And so yeah, but you can, with so much junk in the water, you can kind of see how it works. It's going to suck up stuff into there and just keep collecting. And as it gets more and more plugged up, which these are very coarse, by the way, as it gets more and more plugged up, it'll get finer and finer particles. But the big goal is to never have it fully plugged, and that's why I run such coarse on the large pre-filter sponge, because if that chokes off, which so many do that are finer, it'll kill off all the bacteria in the canister, and it just leads to really bad times. So especially if you're not running an air stone. If I wasn't running this air stone right here, you can see kind of that's what would be the ripple on the top, and there's a few other ripples, but that wouldn't do it in this 800-gallon aquarium. So if that ever happened, the air stone would keep the fish alive, but we would have waste buildup. So I'm going to go ahead and service that, because that's one more step to getting a cleaner aquarium. You can see fish are eating off of it. That's a common thing. They, if I did feed earlier, a little bit of food there, they'll go grab it, and keeps it from getting sucked directly in. So yeah, we'll tackle that part right now. All right, so I realize this might be getting a little boring for you guys. Maybe you're learning a ton, but it's, we're in hour 2 at this point, kind of working on the aquarium, and just wanted to show you how clean these get if you do it right. Like, they get real clean, and they were real dirty. And you can see it kind of sucking the stuff in. Normally you can't see it because there's not this much particulate matter in there, but the next step was addressing lighting. And so I've put my par meter on top of that log. Now the reason I did that log instead of just the gravel was the plants kind of keep stopping growing at that level-ish, roughly. And so I thought, well, let's put it there and see what the actual par reading is up there. I'll show you a little bit of the filtration up here, and probably most of the stuff we're gonna get rid of, like this guy that we set up a long time ago when it was the other room. How clogged this is because it doesn't have a pre-filter. So the flow is almost non-existent. And if I kind of get in here and just, like, even just take some of that out, the flow goes a lot better. And this is just algae that the barbs have been picking out. So the barbs eat the algae, they poop it out, and it kind of ends up here. I pull it out manually, I put it there because I haven't put a pre-filter sponge on it because I'm dumb, is the reality. We've got this big box up here, which I'm going to try to replace this today. The goal of it was, let me get this up here, to run a fine filter pad, and in the bottom one below it there is a UV sterilizer. So the problem is this gets really loud if you kind of do it like this. It drives me nuts. Yeah, I could put a little more power through there, and you can see it is doing some work, but for $200 and some, this was just a colossal epic failure for me. I wanted to like it. If I lift this up a little bit, maybe we can see the UV sterilizer, unless it burnt out or whatever it's doing. Maybe it's unplugged. I don't know what's going on with that. Should be working. I have been having some bad luck with just random Chinese brand on Amazon. I feel like I just keep running into some, no, that's not working very well. And so that's a bummer. But yeah, so back to the light. You know, we've got the par meter down there. And if I turn this on, it's getting like 40 par. And so that's why we're getting a lot of algae. And I know that. So one of the reasons why I turned it back up, I had it down low, was the fish didn't look good. Here, let me try to put this lid on and not make this be as loud and as annoying as it is. So yeah, I knew that it was bright, but the fish weren't doing as well. Color-wise, I lost interest. So I'm actually going to change, instead of having the lights go this way, we're going to try going this way, so I get full front to back, I can lower the lighting down a little bit, and I kind of want to get this down to like 20-ish. It's really going to matter on how do the fish look though. That's the important part. So I think I'm going to set it up on a tripod and we'll kind of take a look. Alright, so I want to talk about how important lighting is. You know, important enough we made our own lights, and unfortunately they've been discontinued because the manufacturer won't make aquarium lights anymore. But I think it's kind of the most important thing. If your aquarium doesn't look good, you don't want to look at it. Well, it's not even the aquarium. If the fish don't look good, you can have a bad looking aquarium if the fish look amazing. You see past that, right? And so in this tank, if I turn the light down too much, so what I did originally is I downsized it from 4-foot lights to 3-foot lights, and I put them at like 50%, and I didn't grow any algae on the glass, and it was kind of awesome in that aspect. But in the fish, there wasn't enough light to make them look good. So like the rainbows didn't have the rainbow sheen or anything, and so kind of what I wanted to do is document this and then change the lighting to where I think it might look good. And then one, this is a reference for me, and then two, you guys can just see, like, I really believe that we are using way too much light in our aquariums, and one of the easiest things to do, because it's absolutely free for most of us, is just turn it down. You know, you might have to buy a dimmer if it didn't already come with one or something, but it's so little money to actually get a better result. And as I'm seeing in my aquariums and at the store, so you know, I'm testing on roughly 150 tanks at the same time, we're seeing much better results. So this is one that I haven't really dialed in because it's pretty hard to dial in. It's so giant, and you don't, you know, you wonder like, okay, is it getting enough light? Isn't it? And so if I move the par meter around and I actually play with the lighting right now, I can get that dialed in. Then we'll get the fertilizer, and those go hand in hand, by the way, in a planted tank. If you have bright light and not enough fertilizer, you just grow a ton of algae. If you don't have enough light and you put a ton of fertilizer in, you just grow a ton of algae. And so you have to match it. And if you don't have an auto doser, which I don't at the moment, I'm putting it in manually, one of the easiest things to do is just turn down the light. By turning down the light, it's almost like you have more fertilizer available. And so I'm basically slowing down. If you know, think of it as like a race car. High light, you got you're driving as fast as you can, you're coming up to turns and all of that. And if you don't brake just right, you will crash, and that is algae. Well, if you go slower, if you just go slow, and you know, there's no cars behind you or anything, but if you just go slow, you don't have to use the brake. You can just go through the turns and not even need to use the brake. And that's kind of what we're trying to get to, is right now I'm driving 100 miles an hour and there's curves. I need to be driving 40 miles an hour through those curves. And so, or maybe a better analogy was I'm driving 40 because my par is 40, and maybe I need to be doing 20 around these corners. So I'm gonna move the lights without moving the par meter. Then we're gonna see what that looks like. Then I'm gonna adjust them a little bit and we'll go from there. Like you can see all the fish, they are definitely checking out the cleaned filter there. They're going, oh, did you release some snacks out of here? Gotta check that out. So yeah, we will get to the bottom of this, and that's the goal really, is just keep spending time today and finally dial this in, because you know, people always say like, why not just fix it? Like, oh, I am, and it takes hours. This is probably, I'll probably spend about 4 hours on basically just this aquarium today with this maintenance. And yes, it's more than just the weekly maintenance. We're trying to do these big things, but all these projects, that filter I don't like took over an hour to install. You know, ordering and finding the right UV sterilizers, doing the research, and then finding out they just don't work very well anyway is a pain in the butt. But I don't really have green water going on at the moment anyway. I did at one point, so I did have that imbalance at one point. But yeah, so time to get to it, and we'll try back in when I've got something to show you. All right, so I've been monkeying around with this for, 10, 15 minutes or so, and I think the front to back, it presents some challenges, but also some perks. So you'll notice it almost looks like there's reflection of like wall lights in the back, where you see like, why is there these triangles? Well, one thing I can show you, at least with our lights, because the water is cloudy. It's like when you shine a flashlight in fog, right? So you can see the spread of these lights. You see how wide they get. So you can see at the very top, pretty narrow. As you go down, it just keeps spreading and spreading and spreading and spreading, right? And so you can kind of see where, maybe at the halfway down that tank, they kind of start hitting each other. And so just wanted to point that out. But the front to back is going to do a couple of things. One, it does get light all the way to the front of the aquarium. That is a plus and a curse. It will grow some algae. That is true. But I think the fish are more evenly lit. So before, the lights were, I had one in like the front 1/3 and kind of one in the second third, right? So they were going lengthways from left to right, basically. Now they go front to back. And so when we look at the fish, for the most part, same amount of light. I haven't dimmed it or anything, but they're evenly kind of lit at the front because there is now some light at the very front, where before, if they were too high in the water, because you see how it spreads, kind of arcs out, well, if they were high up, there was no light up there because it was too pinpointed. So it actually lights the fish better. So the hope is that now, with it being lit better, we will be able to turn it down and still have visually pleasing fish and less light to grow algae. As you can see on the right hand side, like I only had 3 4-footers on there and a 3-footer is what I was running, that we saw a couple minutes ago in this video. And so I'm gonna need to put another 4-footer on there, but I gotta tear down that filter and everything. And so I basically want about a foot in. So if you see the spread of the light, it doesn't really make sense to put a ton of lights back to back to back to back, because they spread out down low so well. And this is another technique, and this happens with most lights. We could actually mount these lights on the ceiling, and they, as you see, we used to light with those kind of lights on the 800 gallon in a different room, and it spreads out really well. You get a nice even lighting, but you also get ripples, and the problem is you then have light in your eyes, and that's one of the problems we have right now. Is if you look right at where above the water, but right before the aquarium, you get that hot spot. And so I might come back and put a piece of wood or a piece of black tape or something to prevent that if I decide that that's just really killing me. But the fish do look good. When you look at the fish and they're going through there, that looks really good. I think it actually looks better, and the tank has more depth because of the front to back lighting instead of the left to right lighting. So now I just got to get a 4th light, I think, and it could be 5 lights. You know, luckily I have a bunch from the fish room builds, but it's somewhere between, basically I was using 4 lights before. I think I'm going to use 4 lights now, potentially 5. As I turn the lights down, I'm thinking if I used more lights but turned down, I might get better coverage while getting less algae. So we're gonna experiment, and you guys can come along for the ride. And I realize it's not even that practical for you guys because unless you have an 800-gallon aquarium, you're probably not gonna have 5 lights. But in smaller tanks, 125 gallons and things like that, you might find this also. So I do think it's applicable there, but doesn't really, if you don't have a tank that's more than about 18 inches front to back, this probably won't come into play for you very much. But I'm actually liking the look. I actually kind of even like the darker end of it, but it's a little too dark. So yeah, I'm gonna keep working on it. I gotta tear that down. It'll probably take 15 minutes to tear all the equipment I want out, get a light set up, and start playing with lighting densities. Because I gotta get up on the ladder, I gotta turn it down, gotta move, turn it down, gotta move, gotta turn it down, then go to the other side, get on the ladder, look at the par meter, do it again, do it again, do it again, and I'll try to get something worth showing you guys. Alright, I have the 4th light on, and I've turned them down to about 50%. I don't know if you guys can tell right off the bat. And to get a true viewing experience, I like to turn off the other lights, so I'm going to do that right now to, you know, get a good vibe, because if I was going to film this tank, just this tank, we turn off all the other lights, essentially. It's mostly these big lights up top that I use to film, or to live stream. So there you go, that's mostly what we've seen. I realize we're kind of at a funny angle here, but I wanted to keep it be the same angle the whole time. And you know, it's still hard to conceptualize because it's a camera, but if I zoom in again, you know, 50% light. So the par is literally 20 now. It was 40. Haven't moved the meter at all. It's still the exact same spot. So we have half as much light. And I think the interesting thing is half as much light, but now the background's highlighted in those spots, which I'm kind of okay with. What's happening right now is they're really sticking out because that's where algae hasn't grown. It's a little more muted on the 4th one that where the overflow is. But that over time I think will come together, and the fish are still looking good. And so I think this is going to be a win. And the thing that we have to do is we basically have to wait for 2 to 4 weeks when you make changes like this to go, did it even do anything? Because visually, that's one check, but then like, what do the plants think? It's half as much. So now, the next big thing on my to-do list is getting the auto doser to work, because I want to make sure that I've eliminated that variable. We have CO2 going in, we have more than enough lighting, and now I want to do CO2, and if I can get that, or not CO2, if I want to get the fertilizer going automatically, so no matter if I'm here or not, it will be doing it, and I'll be dosing every single day. Then I'm going to work on the custom water polisher. You can see all the equipment is out of the back right there, so there's no more equipment, which is going to clean that up once I remove the par meter. So, you know, I realize this has been a long video and it's been a long time. It's all on the same aquarium, and I haven't even worked on that other 40. We'll see if we get to today. Maybe that becomes another video, but I really want to get the foundational steps really working well for me here. And because each time you make this change, you then have to wait. And that's why it takes a while. An 800-gallon aquarium it's not something where you're like, you do it, you wait a week, didn't get the result, and you change it. Because let's say I wanted to swap substrates, that's a 48-hour project. You know, oh, I want to swap the fish, a 48-hour project. Literally 2 days of your life, all weekend to get it done. It's like moving. So you kind of go, well, let's see what this actually does for a while, and see how the fish settle in, see how everything's going, and it is getting better and better. There's no green water. I did notice with the one of the UV sterilizers did go bad, so that sucks. You know, lasted like 5 weeks, Amazon special, basically, of like, yep, lasted 1 week longer than the return rate. The other one is working, that's good. It just resets with a power outage, and that is terrible for me here, because power probably flickers once a week, and that puts me into oh, now my UV sterilizer won't be on mode. So that's a big bummer. But now that I know that, I can add that to the routine of, hey, let me check on the UV sterilizer, the little button to make sure it works if I incorporate it into the new build. Yeah, so now UV, or not UV, now it's auto doser time. All right, I've got the doser installed. This is a bulk resupply doser. I want to say they're between 80 and 100 bucks. We've been using them for a little while in our warehouse. They seem to be more reliable than the Jabo ones. So far, we've only been using them for like 3-4 months, so we don't have like 2-3 year testing. But the way they work is they go very slow, so you can see right here. It's meant to put out 1.1 milliliters per minute, which we find it's more like 1.8. But I'm doing the calibration process right now. We have to get it to fill the tube completely, basically, and then I have to run it for 10 minutes, and it should put out 10 milliliters basically, or 11 milliliters. And you do that with using a Casa plug or any other smart timer. And so I thought I would film this while we're waiting for this to go on, do some. I need a stick to poke it with, like, do it. And then I'll record what we can do in 10 minutes. And then I gotta basically set the timer to run each day for how many minutes. Now it's an 80 gallon or 800 gallon aquarium, which means if we're doing 1 dose a week, that's 80 milliliters. We'll probably start there because we're low on plants, but we gotta, you wanna test every week and see where your nitrates are. I have a feeling if I test them right now, there'll be none, and adjust from there. And so we'll start with what is that gonna be, like 70 or 80 divided by 7, you're gonna get like 11 or 12 milliliters a day, basically, is what we wanna put in here. And so that means we'll set this to run, is that gonna be 5-6 minutes, something like that, because it's not quite, we'll see if this one is. All the other ones we did were 1.8, and that's what people say in the reviews. So we will see. Now it's a waiting game. We're just like, ugh, come on. Which, slow is supposed to be accurate, though. So that's my hope. My hope is that, yeah, slow and steady, we're going to win this race. That is exactly what I'd love to see. For now, we'll just keep waiting. And I'll chime back in when it's actually doing something. Hey, it's finally doing something. Enhance. Oh, too enhanced. You can see it's focusing on the wrong part. Let me get higher. This is how fast it's going to dose. You can see it's slowly, like, making its way through that tube. Yeah. So we're gonna wait another minute or two, hopefully get that tube filled, and then I will run the 10-minute test, and we'll get that squared away, and that will automatically dose my aquarium every day a little bit, and then we'll work on actually polishing the water. My plan is hopefully gonna set up a bucket, kind of. Well, that plan's already broken. Maybe a bucket over here. I'll show you the build, but basically a bucket filter. I use a 3D printer, and I'm hoping I can get that to work. If not, I'm gonna have to get a little crafty, because I was really, only this side has this. I was thinking I had more of these. And I could put it like right here, but that's gonna look super ugly. I was hoping to have it back, and so we'll see where I sneak this little guy in. So, well, as we wait. All right, now it's time to prototype the bucket filter. Well, polishing filter. It's not, I mean, you could put media in here and everything. So, you watch me clean, well, you saw me clean the Eheim filter. I'm basically gonna make another one of those that isn't under pressure. So I printed this. You may have seen this on the forum, but this is actually meant for people to wash their cars. They put this in the bottom of the bucket. If any sand or grit from their mitt falls off in the water, it goes down low. So you can see this hits the bottom of that bucket. You won't pick it back up with the thing you're gonna scrub your car with. And I said, hey, that's exactly what I need to put my polishing pad on. So my plan is, instead of wiping down my car, I've got a polishing pad. Now, I'd cut this in half, but for the sake of this video, right now, this would basically fit down in here. And we'll leave, you want to leave a little bit of gaps and stuff, so if this gets completely clogged, because Corey didn't service it and he was out of town or whatever, it wouldn't overflow the bucket, come back up and just go, oh no, instead it would go to the sides. And so then we take something like this, which you could do this with anything, but I just happen to have this laying around, And imagine that this is going to feed the water in. Let me change it a little bit here. Like what if it was something like this, right? So it's the water's shooting in, I want it to be quiet, so we're actually gonna try to dial it down, but the goal would be, let's say the water came in from my canister filter or a power head. I'm gonna see if I can just I'm trying to take equipment out of the tank, so I'm gonna try and use the Eheim return that I'm using right now, and just put water in the center. When the water in the center clogs, because it gets like, oh, there's too much poop in the middle, it will then the water will slowly creep outward. And eventually it'll use it all, and you take it out and you throw it away. Now, the water has got to get back to the aquarium somehow. And that's where a bulkhead comes in. Just like we use them when we change water, I'm going to install probably 2 of these at the bottom of this bucket. Well, not this one. I'm going to go buy a bucket that's not orange. I'm going to find ones like white or blue, some with not a lot of markings on it. And if I put that in the bottom, basically, right there, this can now let water out, go to my aquarium. So it comes in through the top, goes through my pad, right? Come in through the top, through the pad, filters out all the superfine debris that we've been talking about all video, and then the polished water, with a couple of these, like probably one here and one here, sits on top of my tank and flows back in. And yeah, I happen to print a super handy 3D tool, by the way. This little thing, I'm loving my 3D printer. We've got a whole thread on it, a couple threads on it on the forum. This is a bulkhead wrench, and so it fits a bulkhead perfectly, so that when it's on an aquarium or a bucket, you could just tighten it with your hand instead of having to get vice grips or something like that. And if you've ever used a bunch of these, you know it's kind of a pain in the butt, and you can scratch the back of your tank if you've painted it. So this thing's super cool, printed in like 2 hours, and the print quality, I don't know if you guys will be able to see that, but it's really nice. It's in person, very nice and useful. So now I got to make a hardware store run. That's where I'm going now. I'll be back less than an hour. I'm hoping it's 30 to 35 minutes. Got to drive there, got a bucket source, got another, I want to pick up a big speed square for making tops on the guppy tanks some other day. And hopefully, because today is a day, Small Business Saturday, it's the day after Black Friday. So hopefully everybody's staying home, and I'm going to rush out, grab what I need, rush back, and then finish this project up. And then we'll see if I got the gusto to work on that 40 that's got too much dwarf sag or not. But first we start with the hardware store. All right, here's where we're at. We've got the bucket up there, and unfortunately the white bucket also had writing on it. So I went with blue because blue stood out a little bit less. And it's running fairly quiet. I haven't put a top on it yet, and I think I can still quiet it down some more. But wanted to show you guys, we've got this action going on, which isn't my favorite. So I'm probably going to put some elbows or something on it to try and help with that a little bit. I don't want it to like airlock itself, where bubbles come in, it sucks it back in. There's also the whole like, are you sure you want it there, Corey? Because it's real close to the input. I hear you. And so I probably work on that a little bit, but I'm trying to get proof of concept before I would be able to do you guys a video or something on exactly how to do it. So now I'm going to try to put some elbows and see what that does. Alright, so of course I have black elbows in 3/4. I have T's, they're black in 1 inch, but I don't have a single black 1 inch elbow, so I will have to order them if I'm going to go with that. I might try and 3D print some of this stuff basically. But you can kind of see how it works. The water's coming out. Can't get that focus there. Water's basically coming out of this little fan that was in the water before. You can see it's already collected that much gunk. And that's what it'll do. It'll just keep collecting gunk. So I won't end this video yet. I'll try to chime in tomorrow or the next day. We'll see how it's working. I definitely want to cut a lid, quiet that down a little bit more. If I stop talking, you'll hear it. And just keep on working on it a little bit in general. Could get a different color bucket. This is how this stuff goes. You work on it, then you try something else and you work on it. I'm thinking potentially to make this stuff like in a little spray bar where it has a little outlet on each one. I could do a curly Q, that might be cool. But my goal was to keep it easy to swap this out. And if you put too much stuff in here, it's real hard to get that in and out. So yeah, the flow also, if I used a power head, this would be a lot quieter because the flow would be lesser. I can also I could turn the flow down on the pump, but I don't necessarily want to do that. So for now, I'm gonna give it a night and just see, or a day or two, and just go, how do I like that from my desk? Because while it's probably loud here, and the ladder is definitely creaky and loud, you know, how is it from kind of way back here? It's honestly not very loud. But anytime you can improve upon something, I try. I also am thinking about installing one that looks nicer, like in a wooden enclosure or something for this tank, because it gets a little bit of floaties going on too. So here's my 3D printer mess. One's getting shipped to the warehouse so we can 3D print there. This one's for me, and so we can be testing parts in multiple places, multiple states. And yeah, it doesn't look great, but I can build a surround for that, buy a different bucket, all of that. And we got majority of what I was trying to get done today. Took a little over 5 hours. So I'm gonna call it a day. The wife needs some help. And yeah, I'll chime in, you know, in a day or two and try to see, like, did it get more clear? Did this, all this stuff you do, did it work? And we'll go from there.
The next morning.
All right, so it's the next morning. It's been, what, 15 hours, something like that? Getting ready for the live stream, but I thought I would chime in on, you know, in 15 hours, what's the clarity like? Still a little bit cloudy, and in fact, I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but maybe if I get close to something we can focus on, there's still a bunch of particulate matter in the water. So it's going to take time to filter that out. So you can kind of see it there. It's real fine. And you would think a little bit like we removed all of the power heads and things moving the water and all of that. And this is just basically muck that the fish are kicking up, you know, whether it's down from the gravel or whatnot. But the good news is the filter is working on filtering it out. So the goal would be like maybe in a week, or, you know, I don't know how long it's going to take to do 800 gallons. If you had a 55 gallon, I'd be like, yeah, in like 48 hours, it'll just handle it. Most times, that's just a true statement. But in such a large volume of water, it can be a little bit deceiving. So we go up here, all the way up top. Don't hit my head on the ceiling. And we can see here, it's collecting. And the water's not running off. It's pretty much going through still. And we'll see how that works and if I need to switch this setup before I put a lid and all that. So no lid because I'm still checking on it daily. And I want to see, like, if it gets, you know, another 2 or 3 days of just running off the edge there, kind of down here, or is it going to go this way up here? So we'll play with that some and get that dialed in. And the auto doser went off today. And yeah, I need to clean the top. You know, this is what water will do when you're setting stuff there and you get bubbles going. I'm also going to put tops back on here. And in general, just kind of work on the room. Here's a unique view you don't get every day. The ceiling view. So, yeah. I don't know. The video either ends here or I do more. I'm not sure yet. If it's end, bye-bye. If it's not, all right. All right, I guess I'm doing this because it's driving me nuts watching the fish. Now that I have enough room and I want to feed today before the live stream, because I like to feed after the live stream as well. So, you know, if we look in, that's kind of what the before and the after here is. It's pretty dense. The fish are in there, no doubt, you know, locked into these nooks and crannies, and you can kind of just see if I keep, like there's a nice male Nezzy courting a female there. But there's not a whole lot of wiggle room, and it's also not that enjoyable for myself, and it's blocking a lot of the light, so the fish don't look very vibrant. Yeah, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get in there and I'm just gonna remove the front, like, I don't know, 6 inches of the dwarf sage, and then I'm going to cut down the remaining so that there's actually some swim space in there. And this is, you know, when people ask, like, can you have too many plants? And the answer is yes. If you get to this point, technically this can be. This is probably, like, while not harming the fish, and it looks cool, it's not optimal. So, yeah, I mean, I'll try to talk you guys through it, and I'm going to kind of leave it here and try to kind of show you what I'm doing a little bit. We might cut parts out and speed it up because it might be a long process, but Let me try to get the best view for you guys going here. And so part of what I don't like about having a tank so full, I can't see how well is the sponge filter working. I can't really see, is there a bunch of uneaten food? Now, I don't really think there is, but you know, this stuff's coming up out of the tank. There's a few, you know, like dead leaves here and there that could get taken out. And but for the most part, I usually just kind of start, and with the dwarf sage, I start pulling it up, because if it goes in a chain, it's going to look terrible in here. So just know that this is normal. Like, hey, you're pulling stuff out of the substrate. And this is why I'm not the biggest fan of a planted tank or a dirted tank, because this would happen to a dirted tank as well. The problem being, you would then still have to trim and pull stuff out. So, you know, normally this will get composted. There's no, you know, I don't really go out of my way to make another tank like this. You could say, like, why not put this in the 800 gallon? It's kind of hard to plant that deep, and we're already getting things dialed in. If I add just more and more changes, that could be, you know, more factors than I want to play with. And so usually I'll kind of pinch one of them off to stop the chain and just keep lifting off. And that's all we're really trying to do. Is you kind of see already it's starting to, you know, with the coarse substrate, kind of comes up fairly good. And I did gravel vac this probably about 2 months ago when I when I did this as a tank. So by doing that, it meant when it regrew in, it wouldn't be as bad to pull up. This side over here, gonna be more muck I feed on this side, so more stuff just settles and more poop happens and that kind of stuff. So again, it's just, you could get in here with scissors, but it takes longer to actually, you know, remove all the leaves than it does the plant as a whole. Kind of like you could pull the tops of you know, a dandelion or something off, but you're not really getting necessarily the weed. You can kind of never have enough buckets laying around as an aquarist. So now we start the physical plant mass pulling out, and this is, it's going to be quite a lot. I think that's, you know, evident, but at the same time, you just got to kind of start pulling and going, get out of here, and breaking the chains, which as you start breaking some, it gets a little easier, but you know, it kind of forms this mat almost. So there's one side, and then you got to kind of shred through the other. Usually I will give this away, like I'll leave it in a bucket with some water or something like that for a day or two, see if Aquatics or the store, or, you know, making a dedicated trip, not always worth it, because the store is like an hour away for me, so it's minimum 2 hours of no traffic. So there's one little bunch coming out, and I say little like it's still quite a bit, but you wouldn't really know if I only took that out. You wouldn't even know in the scheme of things. And now I'm starting to reveal, like, oh, there's a nubius in there. I forgot that I had that. The more I hack it back, the longer I get to go between having to do this. Right now it's like 6 weeks or 8 weeks, which is not horrible, but I prefer to not have to get into my tanks as often. You know, still cleaning them and everything, and water changing and doing that, but in terms of like the whole get in there and reset. But the good news is when you got gangbuster plants, you don't really have to worry about damaging, because they'll make more. They're making too many. And I let it get this dense, hoping that the mollies would be able to have babies and do all of that, but it would seem that either they're hunting them down or one of the other species that's in here is hunting them down. And so actually, that's why earlier in the video I moved one to a kind of a breeder thing. Yeah, there's a giant chunk coming out. So now we're starting to look closer. We're definitely closer. There's some, now it's kind of the tidy up on the front line, if you will. Like, okay, let's set a line for this.
Touchings.
And a lot of times I'll use rock or something like that to set the line, so that I know, like, hey, if it's in front of there, that's not where I want it. There's corridors in here, which is going to be, you know, nice to see again. And then we're going to go in and we're going to cut the tops off to get some of that light being shared again, which the light right now is further back than it would be normally, so we will get some of that back. And not really bad for the fish. I could do an extra water change if I'm afraid. The things to know about is you're removing some of your filtration capacity, so take it a little bit lighter on feeding. and then also adapt your fertilizer. If you've been feeding a ton or using a ton of root tabs, like you want to factor that in. If you're going, hey, I just removed 1/3 of the plants, you might reduce it by 1/3 or so. Unless you're already seeing deficiencies, in which case you could keep it the same. So now it's getting hard to see in there. I don't do a whole lot more trimming or pulling out when I can't see. You would want to wait for it to settle or to come back again the next day, do another round. I can do the top trimming. The top trimming is pretty, so you can see here I was losing a Nubius leaf. That's usually a sign of like, yeah, this was sucking up all the nutrients, and this Anubias will want some more. I know that. Just trying to free it from its chokehold of the dwarf sage here. All right, now it's going to be scissor time. The trick is with the scissors, don't cut airline tubing, CO2 tubing, anything like that. Obviously you don't want to cut a fish, but you kind of go slow and steady. And what I do is I get everything to lift off and then I comb the top. And so I try to go about, I don't know, 3/4, maybe 2/3 again, so that there's space above the plants to swim and I get a good view, but not so low the plant will struggle extra hard, because this is hard on this plant and this tank. It does not prefer this by any means, but it will give us what we want, and that is better looking tank. You'll see the plants, and you'll always miss some, so it'll still grow in, and you could get obsessive about it and really trim, but mostly I just try to trim the lion's share back. All right, so that's the first cut, and now you can normally kind of start taking some bigger handfuls out that have been cut, and you'll see here kind of float throughout the tank. These are all the ends, and you'll still find the ones that are left long that you've missed so far, but all part of the haircut process. It's like when you get a haircut and they gotta comb it before they see which hairs they miss. Kind of the same thing going on here. We gotta comb through, get the ones we've already cut up and out. There's another just little floating Anubias that was floating in the back corner there. And so I know the light's kind of dark here for sure, but this plant, this Anubias has been sitting there. You probably won't be able to see, but it's got that yellow leaf. This is a perfect sign. Not enough nitrogen. All those plants are consuming it. So I'll pluck that leaf, but Anubias are slow to feed in comparison, so they can struggle when other plants are thriving. And so I didn't even know that was going on because I couldn't see. So that's another example of how, like, oh, bummer. Too much plants can be a good or a bad thing. Now would be a great time if you were gonna do a water change. You could do a water change because there's a lot of gunk in the water column. The other method you can do if you're not just changing water and you want to gravel vac is you can gravel vac the front once it all settles. So that's another option you can do that will help it just look that much better when the corridors come out to dig in the front. All right, so if we put the light back, which, you know, we'd have to wipe down the front and everything still. There's still more pieces, always more pieces. This will be a 1 or 2 day thing. I'm just grabbing the extra little stuff you miss each time, but you do that while you're feeding. Put this light back, and now you can't see anything. So this video will actually end when I can follow up later today or tomorrow and kind of show, you know, like, hey, that's the difference. Look, yay! Instead of it just looking worse than when we started. This is the 1 hour later look. As you can see, there's a lot of Malaysian triple snails in here. They usually are nocturnal, but they got awakened from pulling out all the plants. You can see all the fish and the pygmy corridors, that kind of stuff going on there. But mostly just wanted to chime in with that. Like 1 hour later, you know, need to do the sponge filter. That's going to be on the today or tomorrow docket, and I'm going to do the live stream right now. But just thought I would show that, yeah, once you can see stuff, oh my gosh, you can see stuff. And so yeah, seeing fish more, even, you know, those two bright orange mollies kind of in the front, or saffron, I guess what they're called, in the front left, seeing the school of corridors, There's the male Cyprichromis. You know, just this tank becomes like, oh, it's a fish tank again, instead of like that was just overgrown plants. Now you can see there's quite a few fish in there, and so yeah, I need to work on it more. You know, we're not done. It's just want to show off the 1 hour mark. All right, well, here's the next day update after the trim. As you can see, I think the fish are a lot happier. I think the plants don't look as good because they all got a haircut. But I haven't cleaned anything. So what I mean by that is the sponge filter in the back, we can see it's working now quite well. And I can see all the fish again. Like, that's way healthier in terms of, like, you know, I think a lot of people run into this problem where like, oh, I had a fish and then I just don't have it anymore, and maybe it got too you know, thick and you couldn't see if when something dies or something like that. But yeah, the camera's compensating for it, but it's actually a lot brighter now without all the light being blocked. Yes, you would kind of get some less babies, but you also just don't know what's going on. And so I think this tank will look a lot better in, call it 2 to 3 weeks, where you get a lot of the growth still growing up. We've now got the front space so that fish can actually be seen, and I'm enjoying the aquarium more, and I think it'll be easier to feed as well. So you can see, you know, there's some fish darting around, and this was a catch-all tank for a very long time. That's why there's so many species that normally wouldn't necessarily be together. But I haven't torn down the tank, because that's what you'd have to do to get all the fish out. So for now, it's just been like, yeah, let them live, and maybe we'll make some babies and all of that. And that's what these last 2 tanks are. This one and this one over here, which is this dark tank is much more dim, but it compensated with the camera there for you guys. So, you know, goldfish and betta is not a conventional mix by any means. And there's also a Limia perugiae in there as well, kind of down in that bottom corner. But just holding the fort down, and the goldfish went in, the shrubuncuns went in to eat all the duckweed for me, and they've done almost all that, but these guys look great. And yeah, so I'll probably just feed a little bit of the community pellet, because I still want to end my videos with, hey, check out how the foods work, and we'll call it a day. So I've decided I'll feed this tank and the 800-gallon just because of the 2 tanks we worked on in the video. This is the community pellet, perfect size in my opinion for all the fish kind of in this tank, which is live airs and the Cyprichromis. And it's a floating pellet. You can see here you'll get a few sinkers, but most of them will actually come back up. And it's the perfect pellet size for small mouths. I think too many people are feeding too big of fish, and or too big of pellets, and the fish have to chew it a whole bunch. So the goal is to, you know, give them that bite size. And Cyprichromis are notorious for having small mouths, and same with, you know, some of these swordtails and stuff. So them getting to actually just kind of take it in, and that is the overall goal. Nice, slow one, you know, sinking for the ones that do, but all the other pellets that are up there, they will basically float for hours. So it's, you know, hard to get every single pellet to always float 100%, but being that they do go down so slow, ooh, I just realized she's full of fry. That one right there, you see? I actually think she's full of fry. I'll review the footage to see if she just took in 20 pellets, but that's usually what they look like when they are full of fry. They're a mouth brooder. So we will do this with the 800-gallon next up. All right, and this is, you know, 2 days after the work we did on the 800-gallon. The water is fairly clear. However, I still think we can get it more clear. So, you know, you're not really seeing much in the water at all, besides these fish when you zoom in, but I can tell there's still a little bit in the water. And, you know, when we're talking absolute crystal clear water, this is not that yet, and it's evidence when you look from the side. But I will show you the guys a frenzy from the community pellet, because I think people are sleeping on it, is why I'm showing it off more. Is people fell in love with the Magic Small Fish Feed, and they're like, this is amazing. And a lot of people haven't tried the community pellet, understandably so, because like, I just ordered that, Corey. And I just want to make sure you guys know, like, yeah, you need to order this the next time also. So we'll watch these guys kind of go bonkers for it. And so there's that frenzy with all the clown loaches going up for it. Try to zoom in a little bit here. It's kind of hard when it's up and they get spooked easy, but not a lot of light in that corner from where we just, we moved the lights, but there is none left already. I need to go probably feed a little bit more, but yeah, most come out. There's a few straggling clown loaches going, oh wait, was it dinner time? And that's how I end up feeding a few times a day. But yeah, thanks for watching. We stayed all the way to the end here. Thanks for supporting what we do. And I'll probably do a few more videos like this, but it's good to spend this long amount of time getting some tanks just kind of done. Not done, but some long overdue maintenance done and some changes done. I think changes is the right word. Getting those big changes done. It's one thing to maintain, it's another thing to change. So, all right, well, we'll see you around. Thanks for hanging out.